Do you know your numbers, owner-operators?
It was one of the first things I asked when I went up on stage, because I'm big on numbers, big on measuring and then improving. And I got about that response. It was about 5 to 10% of the room. And I set a goal in 1999, some crazy big goal that every time I ask that, I want more hands to go up. And I have failed miserably. I haven't even moved the needle on this one. If I can get anything across to you right now in this room, I can give you one thing that's going to turn your business around. It's going to be that you have to have those numbers. And does anybody, let me just ask you, do you think it's more important today to have those numbers, or was it more important in 99? Absolutely more important today. It's more and more important all the time.
That was the voice of longtime former owner-operator, small fleet owner, trucking business accountant and advice man, radio host, and all-around owner-operator business guru, Kevin Rutherford, referencing his first time on a stage in 1999 at the Mid-America Trucking Show, part of that year's Overdrive's Partners in Business seminar. It's always a return to fundamentals listening to Rutherford talk about what he knows best. That's ways to maximize profit with cost and revenue attention for a one-truck business. I'm Todd Dills, your host for this Overdrive Radio edition for January 12, 2026. We're dropping back into the 2025 conference of the National Association of Small Trucking Companies, where Kevin Rutherford this year took attendees to what's been his principal goal for more than 2 decades now, helping one-truck businesses optimize every single aspect of their work toward the profit goal. He's failed in some ways to capture the full attention of most owners, as he was illustrating in that clip you heard at the top, but there's evidence among those he's reached that his message is resonating and working for many. At the NASTC conference, speaking to a room of owner-operators and small fleet owners, he emphasized that for so many trucking businesses, the last few years have delivered a storm of difficulty. As anyone who reads the trucking press knows, it's not hard to find news of this or that trucking company's recent bankruptcy, of course.
A lot of people may not realize what's happening. While we're watching carriers drop like flies, I'm watching some of the carriers I've worked with for years set records. 2022, 2023, 24, into 25, in this crazy freight recession everybody's talking about, I'm seeing single truck owner operators put out records, revenue and profit records that I've never seen before. I didn't think would be possible.
Achieving such isn't something that's accomplished overnight. It certainly isn't what you would call easy. Yet Rutherford hopes more owner-operators might resolve this new year to take one area of focus, and he talks about plenty in what follows here, and take that area and really resolve to improve execution. Start with one, then move to the next one, and then the next one. For the business owner with one truck, when it comes to controlling costs and really beating the competition, Rutherford feels the competitive advantage when such approaches are taken is real.
Single best model in the industry. A single truck owner operator with really good relationships with good small brokers, serving customers better than anybody else can.
Well, on the way through his talk, he'll focus on that revenue side too, with a 3-point program for using a load board not to satisfy your freight needs, but as a strong educational window on the market, and a path to those strong broker relationships that can carry independence forward to truly being that remarkable one-truck company, or ROTC for short, the name for his partnership with NASTC to help deliver business insight and education to his own network, but also new NASTC members. Much more on that after the break.
Winter doesn't wait, and neither should you. Treat now with Howe's Diesel Treat to prevent your fuel from gelling, and keep using it at every fill-up this winter to make sure you're always running strong when the cold sets in. But if you waited too long to treat your fuel and get hit with a winter emergency, Howe's Diesel Lifeline works fast, reliquefying gelled fuel and de-icing frozen filters to get you moving again. Stay prepared with complete winter readiness from Howe's. Prevention and rescue trusted by drivers everywhere, because downtime isn't an option.
Find Howe's full line of fuel treatments via HOWES, HowesProducts.com. Here's Rutherford, re-engaging with business fundamentals quite like a good football coach, as it were, without the shouting.
First off, what is the goal of our company. We're going to run one truck. What should our goal be? What is the ideal? What are we really doing this for? What's the outcome we want at the end of the day or at the end of the week? Anybody want to tell me? I mean, what's that?
Most profit.
Exactly. The most profit. Now, that's the ultimate goal. The way we do that, I believe, and I also believe it's the responsibility of a company, is to serve your customer the best way you can possibly serve them. If you focus on the profit, many times you're going to fall short. That is the goal. But the way to get to that goal is to serve a customer. And I think that's every business. That's what runs our country. Small business runs our country. So it's our responsibility to serve our customer the best we possibly can. How many of you throughout the day when you're out there at fuel stops and truck stops, at the terminal, wherever you might be, how many of you hear people who do what I do or what we do or what you do use the word customer? You use it every day. That's why you're here. How many other people do you hear use that word?
Not a lot.
It's shocking to me when we talk about business, you still don't hear the word customer. I deal with a lot of other industries, the tax industry, the financial planning industry, the health industry. Customer is probably the most common word everybody uses in business. Brent, do you agree with that? You go to all kinds of businesses. Customer, the word gets used over and over and over. And I'll be talking with an owner-operator and I'll start talking about serving your customer, and I'll start to see that deer in the headlights look. And then I'll know I have to stop and help them identify who their customer is. Now, many times the knee-jerk answer is, well, the shipper. Many times it's not, though. That doesn't mean we're not going to serve the shipper, but it's not our direct customer. If you own a truck and you're leased to a carrier, who's your customer? The carrier. How many owner-operators leased to carriers do you hear talk about their customer in a really good way? Or are they always complaining about how lousy the carriers, what a bunch of jerks they are, how much they're ripping me off? Why do they get to keep 27% when I did all the work? But did you really do all the work? You moved the freight, and that's certainly a big part of it, so you should get a big part of the revenue. But who sold the freight? Who carried the credit many times? Who took the risk? Carriers got all the liability insurance and the cargo insurance, so the carrier does do a lot. But ultimately, that doesn't matter. What matters is the person's check who you write, the entity's check that you cash. That's your customer. Now, we know how they talk about their carriers. If we have the truck and we have the authority, who is most likely to be the company we're going to work for? What would we call them?
A broker.
A broker. How many owner-operators and small carriers do you know who treat the broker like a customer? What do they call them most of the time? Yeah, assholes. That's a pretty common one, right? Jerks. How come they're getting 80% of the love? Like, that really happens every day, right? But they'll swear that it does. We know what the numbers are.
Rutherford cited common average broker margin percentage estimates of 12 to 14% of any load. And Overdrive reporting in recent years has shown variation depending on the segment, with flatbed load brokers netting a slightly higher average margin of around 15%. Too often, Rutherford is suggesting bad experiences with brokers tend to overshadow even the possibility of customer service with others for some among owner-operators. Seeing any broker as an adversary certainly isn't going to help deliver on the key to success in any business.
You know, I'm going to give everybody the secret to success in business, and then we can just all go to lunch. How's that sound? We can skip all this. I'll just give you the secret. Here it is right here. I've already said it. I'm just going to say it again. If you want to succeed in business, any business, all you do, when I say all you do, I'm going to make it sound easy. It's not easy, but it is simple. It's really hard, but it's simple. The secret to success in any business is you serve your customer better than anybody else can. That's it. That's what this whole thing comes down to. And that should be, when you're a business owner, that should be in your mind when you wake up in the morning, and that should be in your mind when you go to bed at night. What could I do tomorrow to serve my customer better than I did today? And the beauty of the one truck model, which is why I love this model, I always have. The beauty of the one truck model is I have 100% control over how I do that. The minute I go to 2 trucks, I've lost some of that control. So this program is about taking a one truck operation and doing exactly that, optimizing every part of the business so that you can serve your customer, whether it's a broker, a carrier, or a direct shipper. And you can use any or all of them, and all of this stuff works. You get to pick which business model you like, but whatever business model you choose, this program will show you how to optimize that operation to serve your customer better than anybody else can, and thereby drive the most profit to the bottom line possible. We can accomplish both of those things, and that's what this program is all about. It's fairly simple. There's nothing in here that's rocket science, but it is extremely hard work. And you've got to do it day after day after day. And you've got to, the way we do it is constantly changing. And just like everything else in our world right now, the change happens faster and faster. So you've got to stay on top of it. But the real key is the mindset itself. And I spend a lot of time talking about that mindset. It's the last thought I have at night. I do it. And who's my customer? Right now, it's you. I spend a lot of time making sure when I come in here that I'm serving you better than anybody else can. And that's what I think about when I do whatever it is I'm going to do. What does remarkable mean? I use 2 words a lot in this program. Remarkable and optimized. And we'll talk about optimized first. Optimized to me means just what I was talking about. We've looked at every aspect of our business. We've measured something, because if you can't measure something, you can't optimize it. So we look at every aspect of our business. We measure it first. Where are we now? And then how do we optimize it? And once we get it optimized, we can move on to the next measure in the business. And once we've done everything we can do, we know we have the business optimized now. And if you optimize everything, then I think you're going to be pretty remarkable. One of the things you need to do first, in my opinion, because this is about numbers, is we have to measure the numbers of the business. So it's not first about customer service or serving a customer. It's about getting our numbers optimized. Be real honest. I know most of the people in the room own trucks. How many of you honestly, and I might ask you some numbers, so how many of you honestly have a good business report, whether you use a profit and loss or something else? You've got something that you can look at any time and know where your numbers are. How many of you have that? Brent was with me the first time I stepped up on stage and did this, right, Brent? When was it?
1999.
1999. And I asked that, it was one of the first things I asked when I went up on stage, because I'm big on numbers, big on measuring and then improving. And I got about that response. It was about 5 to 10% of the room. And I set a goal in 1999, some crazy big goal that every time I ask that, I want more hands to go up. And I have failed miserably. I haven't even moved the needle on this one. If I can get anything across to you right now in this room, if I can give you one thing that's going to turn your business around, it's going to be that you have to have those numbers. And does anybody, let me just ask you, do you think it's more important today to have those numbers, or was it more important in 99? Absolutely more important today. It's more and more important all the time. I grew up in this industry. My grandfather was an owner-operator when the seat in the truck was a wooden bench. That's not an exaggeration. He was leased to a moving company back then. We're talking the 20s and 30s. You measured a trip from the East Coast to the West Coast in weeks, not days or hours. It was weeks. There were no interstates. There were no truck stops. My father started driving a milk truck when he was 14 with no license. And actually, my father was a very frustrated, failed owner-operator. And that's what I grew up with. My dad would take a union driving job that he absolutely hated. And he was miserable, so he could make enough money to pay the bills and hope to save a little bit of money to buy an old junk truck. And I think he wanted to work on the truck more than he wanted to drive it, because that's what he loved to do. But he had to drive it to make some money. And he'd drive it until he ran out of money, and then he'd go get a union job again. And that was the cycle I lived with. And I thought, boy, that's something I'm never doing. I didn't want to be anywhere near the trucking industry until a couple of years, about the first time I could, at 22, I bought a truck because I loved the industry. But I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to repeat that pattern. There's got to be a better way to do this. But it comes down to the numbers. There was a time where there were many successful people running trucks that didn't know their numbers. It wasn't that important. You know, fuel was, even when I started, fuel was 70 some cents a gallon. You know, when fuel was 13 cents a gallon, it just didn't matter if you just had to work hard. It was all you had to do with a truck at one time was work hard, make a couple good decisions, you're probably going to make. How many of our biggest carriers today started with one truck? That is a very common thing in our industry. Those days I don't see that happening a whole lot anymore. I don't see anybody starting with one truck and becoming a mega carrier. Not that you would want to. I wouldn't want to. That's why I didn't. I had about 11 trucks, and that was enough for me at the time. But what you do want to do is you want to survive and you want to succeed. We are watching carriers drop like flies the last couple of years, and it doesn't matter what your size is, it seems. You might be one truck, you might be 300 trucks, and this has still been a tough economy. Let me tell you something else. A lot of people may not realize what's happening. While we're watching carriers drop like flies, I'm watching some of the carriers I've worked with for years set records. 2022, 2023, 24, into 25, in this crazy freight recession everybody's talking about. I'm seeing single truck owner operators put out records, revenue and profit records that I've never seen before. I didn't think would be possible. One truck, one driver, single truck operation, does have his own authority, had some direct customers and some broker freight. In 2024, netted, took home $270,000. That's an incredible number. He kind of gave me some of the credit. I had been working with him. He had been coming to my seminars for years. His wife works for us. He became a part of our company. He ran about 170,000 miles by himself. That's a tough year. But I didn't even think those numbers would have been possible. And he told me, he said, you should know they're possible. You taught me the system. But I just never saw that coming. And 2025, he was on track to do better. And unfortunately, we lost him. But from 23, 24, 25, he was doing better every year. Better revenue, better profit, and then he finally started to slow down miles-wise. But it showed me what is absolutely possible when you optimize every part of the business. And he did that. He did it over about a 10-year period. And this isn't something, you don't get to those kind of numbers overnight. I can teach you everything I taught him, and you're not going to do those numbers. It's going to take some time. It takes relationships. He also ran the same lane for about 25 years, Minnesota to Florida. So he was able to optimize that lane. He was able to learn. Now, how many people like going to Florida? With the truck? We're on vacation. Okay. I figured I better clarify that. Yeah, we all love going to Disney on vacation. Most people who own trucks don't want to go to Florida. I mean, it's the example we use all the time, right? It's, I'm going to get a good rate going in. I'm going to get such a lousy rate coming out, or I'm not even going to be able to find any freight, and I'm going to deadhead out. He saw an opportunity there. And he built that opportunity into profits that are just kind of crazy, really. So we're going to talk about efficiency first. As a single truck owner operator, what's your single biggest expense? Fuel, by far. What is one of the things in your operation that you have a lot of control over? Your fuel mileage and your fuel cost. How many people have put any real effort into maximizing their fuel efficiency of their truck and their operation and maximizing their fuel purchasing? I know a lot of you are NASTC members, so you've got the best fuel card in the business. That is the reason I'm here today, because of their fuel card. So I've been on the air for 20 years now, I guess. And when I found out about the NASTC fuel card, I said, that can't be right. I know big fleets that don't have those kind of discounts. How do you do that with one truck or a couple trucks? That just doesn't sound right. I learned how it was being done. And all I cared about was it can be done. And I just started doing what I always do. Help people with small trucks be more profitable. So I started telling people, you should just go join NASTC and get their fuel card. I had never talked to NASTC. I think I had talked to David Owen one time about 18 years ago at a truck show. And honestly, we almost felt like competitors in a couple of ways. So we had a good talk, and I, said, okay, great. I can still send people for their fuel card because I'm not in that business. It's the right thing to do, and it helps people. A couple of years ago, David Owen called me out of the blue, and I picked up the phone, and he said, this is David Owen at NASTC, and I knew right away who it was. And he said, I owe you a bunch of money. Well, that's a good phone call to get. I said, I don't remember sending you an invoice. And he said, you haven't. He said, but we were going through our records. And he said, we pay money all over the place for some marketing. And, he said, we realized you have sent us more new members than anything we've ever paid for. And you've never called us. You've never asked for anything. And he said, I really feel like I owe you some money. So here we are today. And it's probably the best partnership we've had. It's just a really good fit for us. One of the things that's happened, the one truck model has been my sweet spot forever. And it always will be. That's the model I love. David's average fleet size at one point was probably almost 30 trucks. And just because of what's happened in the market and the economy and some other things, for David, his average fleet size keeps getting smaller. And it's been doing that for years. It's not a bad thing. He's got more trucks overall. He just has smaller and smaller fleets. It's harder and harder to build a fleet these days. What happened with me was I taught people this, and guess what happens when you optimize your first truck? You start thinking about a second truck. So all of a sudden I would look at our member base and say, we've got a lot of small carriers all of a sudden. We weren't really in that market, but we helped them optimize their first truck. Now they've got 15 and they're still kind of with us. So we realized we could either compete against each other and fight for that market, or we could just get together and really create a real win-win. There's so many places we don't compete. There's so many things I do that they don't, and they had a bunch of services that they have and I don't want to be a part of. I don't want to sell insurance. I don't want to go try to build a fuel card program like theirs. So it really made sense for us to get together. They have the best fuel card in the business. I have the ability to help you build the most fuel efficient truck you could build. Anybody want to tell me what their fuel economy is? You can shout it out if you want. I know what the averages are. I know what most people are getting. 7.6. 7.6. That's a darn good average for a fleet that size. Now, here's something else I will tell you. Fleets really struggle to improve fuel economy. There are so many other factors that they have to take into account. Drivers, time, technology, maintenance, all kinds of things. This is the single place where a single truck owner operator should be beating the pants off of every fleet in the country. They should never be able to compete with you in fuel economy. And I'm even talking about You're familiar with Mesilla Valley. Never seen any fleet that has maximized fuel economy like they do. I know their CEO, and he's a fanatic about that, though. And it's pretty incredible what they've done, but that's rare.
Kevin Rutherford here pointed out an owner-operator in the audience pulling double-trailer B trains, 140,000 pounds gross, with a 5 to 5.8 miles per gallon average.
The owner-operators that lease to him doing exactly what he does are getting 2.5 to 3 miles to the gallon. So if they're getting 2.5, let's say you get 5. Somebody do the math. What's that percentage? He has half the fuel cost of the people leased to him doing the exact same thing. And every time I talk about fuel mileage, somebody in the room will go, "Oh, but you can't do that with my operation." Well, no, I can't do 11 or 12, but we can do 5 when the average is 3. Mark, you do car hauling.
Yeah, 5.5.
5.5 with a full car hauler. And the average in that industry is about 4.5. You look at the improvement there, it's incredible the amount of money you can save. In the general freight van market, we've got trucks now pushing 12 plus miles to the gallon. That is possible in today's world. You get 12 miles per gallon in a van with up to 80,000 pounds. So some loads might be 65, but at 80, the normal freight. And one of my co-hosts on Thursday, Joel Morrow, you know him, Joel proved it by saying, "I'm just going to go," in fact, one of his drivers is here. And he's the new fuel mileage superstar, by the way. What are your numbers these days?
Rutherford there was signaling to the current driver for the Alpha Drivers Transportation Purple Haze 1 Volvo. Alpha's Alex Kostras has written about extensively in a memorable piece for our Overdrive Extra blog back in 2024. The driver noted he was well above 10 mpg in that unit. As Joel Morrow continues to break in that next generation VNL we profiled at the site back last year as he pushes toward 12 miles per gallon with it.
Now, here's something else that a lot of people do not understand. This took me a long time to understand. I knew it was there. I didn't understand how powerful it was. We know that almost everything you do to improve fuel economy lowers maintenance costs. But I didn't know how big that was. And I think Joel and his brother tracked this a lot in a 100 truck fleet or so, and the numbers were way bigger than what I thought. I mean, maintenance costs going down 30 and 40%. The savings is just incredible on the maintenance. It's a little harder to measure the maintenance. We can measure fuel on tank after tank after tank. Those are hard numbers, we know it. But we've got enough data now to show the maintenance savings is incredible. So this is really, if you're going to start optimizing, and I hope that's what you do when you leave here. That's my goal today, is when you leave here, that word optimize is in your mind and you start optimizing your operation. If you're going to start here. This is where the money is. And you can focus on fuel and you'll get the double benefit of much lower maintenance costs as well. What else, if we know we have lower maintenance costs, what else would that correlate to? Stress, there's a good one, I like that. There we go, that's what I was looking for. If our maintenance cost is lower, I mean, we have more uptime. We have more uptime. We have more productivity and we serve our customer better. How many times do you have to tell your customer, sorry, truck's in the shop, they told me it was going to be out yesterday, it's still not out, I got it out, they didn't get it fixed right, I got to go back. So when we lower maintenance cost, productivity goes up. It really is going to come down to the numbers. You're more reliable at that point. And then as soon as I could quantify it, if maintenance cost goes down, uptime has to go up. I mean, that's just, those two go hand in hand. But the beauty of it is, we put a little bit of focus on maintenance. There are some things we can do, but the single best way to start lowering your maintenance cost is to start improving your fuel economy. The more we improve the fuel economy, the lower the maintenance cost goes. So it is kind of a new concept, and you've been with me since '99 when I've been teaching this, but this is fairly new for us because now we can quantify it. In order to quantify it, you've got to measure your numbers. Here's some good news. I've gone Now 360 degrees on this topic. My first business in trucking other than owning trucks was an accounting company for owner-operators, because I saw what turned my business around was understanding the numbers. And then I wanted to help my friends do it in the beginning. I was just like, look, guys, let me show you how to do this. And that turned into a business. So I did taxes and accounting for owner-operators for many years. I've actually had 2 of those companies. I sold them both. I hate that business model. I like the accounting and helping people. The tax business is just awful. You got all of your work for the year crammed into about 3 months of the year, and nobody is ever happy with you because you're the guy that has to tell them how much tax they owe. And even if I could save them $10,000 a year in tax, they still felt like they were paying too much. And I was the bearer of the bad news. So I built 2 very successful accounting companies and sold them because I just don't like doing that work. But the trick was in the numbers. Once you know the numbers. So I get it. How many people in here just love paperwork? Come on, guys. Okay, there's usually one.
Yeah.
So hire her. I hate paperwork. People think I'm the numbers guy. I hate numbers. But I understand how powerful they are. I don't want to do accounting in my business. I don't want to have to go read these reports. I want to serve my customer. But I also know that the more efficient I can operate my business, the better I can serve my customer. So it's just part of that work that I don't want to do, but I have to do it. If I want to be successful and optimize and serve my customer, I have to do it. So I thought, I'll take that work away from you. I'll send me all your receipts, send me all your settlements. That's what we did. We created the financial statements. We did the tax returns. And I thought immediately everybody's business is going to transform. And it didn't happen. I thought, what am I missing here? It's all about the numbers. I'm giving them the numbers and nothing's happening. Then I realized they don't understand the numbers. So, okay, I got to do more explaining to them. So I would start calling every client. We'd finish their P&L. I'd call them. I'd go over it. And it was on the phone because I had people all over the country. And I started realizing I can talk till I'm blue in my face. They don't understand these numbers. And they just want to get back to trucking. So we actually started firing our customers and saying, we're not going to do this work for you anymore. We'll give you the software to do it yourself. We wrote a program called Profit Gauges. We still have it today. And I thought, this is going to solve it. You put your numbers in, and if you do, and it's not that hard, you start to understand those numbers better. But ultimately, that is the toughest product I've ever tried to sell because truck drivers don't want to deal with paperwork. And even if I can make it 30 minutes a month, which is about what our software takes, they still don't want to do it. Now I'm back to technology is going to allow us to have the numbers generated and nobody has to do the data entry. But that's a double-edged sword because now we've got the numbers again. They're right in front of you, but how do I help you understand them? And that's the challenge I'm still working on. Anybody want to guess what I might be looking at as far as a solution for that part of it? Helping you understand the numbers that have been automatically generated for you? I'm going to say AI. It does it better than I can do it. I've trained the AI to do this, to take owner-operator numbers and teach them back to the owner-operator. And we will be launching products like that very soon. And they will be driven 100% by AI. Because it is a powerful tool when it's used right. Right now, we're in an arms race. And it's who's going to use AI better, the crooks or the business people. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I help my clients and the people who follow me understand that AI is a very powerful tool and you can't ignore it. The crooks have all figured it out. I think they figured it out first. So it's all about the numbers, and we're doing everything we can right now to make those numbers easier. Now, there's 2 ways to put more money to the bottom line in a business. What are they? Two big picture ways. This isn't a trick question.
What's this fast? That's what we
generate more revenue, lower your expenses.
Yeah.
Those are the two ways. I don't know why in this industry we somehow came to this point, or maybe it's been in existence all the time. It's been in existence the whole time I've been in the industry. The attitude I get when I talk about cutting costs is like, I'm the dumb one. Like, why would you bother with that? They actually say that. Why would I bother trying to get better fuel mileage? I'll just go get a better rate. Well, why not do both? They're not mutually exclusive. But if I had to focus on one, if somebody said, well, you can only do one, I will focus on expenses day in and day out and ignore rates if I have to. How much control do you really have over rates? A little bit. That's the right answer. A little bit. You have some. And I'll tell you, I make numbers up all the time. So I'm making these numbers up right now that I think they're pretty accurate because I've done this for a long time. I've got a number where I say about 85% of the freight rate is locked in. It's the market. It's supply and demand. It's that lane. Now, we've got a tough business with supply and demand. We've got lanes that are wildly different, and we have lanes that supply and demand changes in the same day, right? That's just how dynamic this market is. But let's call it 85%. The other 15% comes down to what I think are two or three things. One, your knowledge of those rates and lanes. How many of you really study rates and lanes? When I say study, I mean it's something you should be looking at every time you choose a load. Almost, is anybody? Well, there's a big opportunity. Where do you think you might find that information if you wanted to start studying rates and lanes? How many of you have a load board account, truckstop.com maybe? What are the rest of you doing? Where are you getting your freight?
I work for him. So.
Okay.
Private load boards.
What's that?
Private load boards and emails.
So some other load boards, maybe. Well, you're in a specialty market too, so you should be getting about 5 to 10% of your freight off that load board, because the best freight never makes it to the load board. I have a term for the best freight. It's called relational freight. It's relationships is where the best freight moves. This program, the ROTC program, is designed to also be a partnership with small carriers and small brokers as a team. That's where the freight gets moved efficiently, safely, profitably. I think that is the single best model in the industry. A single truck owner operator with really good relationships with good small brokers, serving customers better than anybody else can. We can move the freight safer, cheaper, more productively. Everybody wins in this model. So I love this model. Here's something I do in one of my other programs. I break truck owners down into three groups. There's the 90%. And we see them all the time, and we think that's the norm. We think that's the way this all works. Here's how the 90%, and by the way, the 90% struggle most of their careers. How many of you have known people that have owned a truck for 20 or 25 years and they're still this close to being out of business? And they're not making any more money than they were 20 years ago or 25 years ago. That's the 90%. The 9%, I break it down to 9% after that. These are the guys that have got it figured out. They own homes, they have retirement accounts, they put their kids through college, they take vacations. They're not in any risk in this crazy freight recession, barely touches them. The 9% is a great place to be. I teach people to get to the 9%. Have I done the math right? Did we hit 100% yet? There's something out there. There's the 1%. And this program can teach you how to get to the 1%. But I'll also tell you it's 1% for a reason. The numbers I talked about earlier, one truck, one driver, $275,000 a year net. That's the 1%. He also ran 160, 170,000 miles a year, did a lot of his own maintenance on the truck, spent all of his downtime studying rates and lanes and building customer relationships. Not everybody even wants to be in that 1%, and you know what it's going to take. But if you want to get there, I can show you how. The 9% is really what we're shooting for. Here's how the 90% use the load boards. We know this because we have all the data. It's time to get a load. They log into their load board account. They put in there where they are and where they want to go, or maybe they're searching all over. And then the next thing they do is sort by rate, right? We want, if there are rates posted, and more happen, that happens a lot now, they want to know what's the highest paying load. Well, first off, if you wanted to know the highest paying load, you wouldn't be on the load board. You'd be talking to the brokers you have relationships with and your customers, and they'd be giving you those better rates. But here they are, they're going to sort. Now what they're going to do is whatever load in that lane comes up to the top, best paying rate, they're going to make the phone call. They're going to go run that load. They're going to go back to the load board, and they're going to do it again. What are the odds that every time they do this, the same brokers keep coming up to the top? Almost zero. How many brokers do we have in the country today?
It's about 11,000 there.
About 11,000. What are the odds? It's competitive. They're all trying to, So what happens then is we have two terms for this. The first thing they're doing when they sort is they're chasing the rate. They're just trying to find the best posted rate. What that leads to is what we call one and done. You're going to pull a load for that broker today because he had the best load. Tomorrow you're going to pull a broker. Who likes onboarding with brokers? Just stop that whole madness. But you're never, ever building relationships. I've been a broker. I know both sides of this game. When you call me and I don't know who you are, one, you're not getting my best rate. Even on this load, I'm going to try to hold back as much as I possibly can because I got to protect my customer. I don't know you. And I got to make as much money off this because when you screw me and screw my customer, I at least needed to get a little bit of profit out of that. So this one and done model, and here's how I discovered this. Remember I said I had a tax and accounting company? I would do tax returns for single truck owner operators, and they would have over 100 1099s for brokers. And I would look at that and say, how do you even do this? How do you manage to pull for that many brokers in a single year? But then I realized this is what they do. Here's what the 9% do. Here's how they use the load board. How many tools, Brent, are on truckstop.com to understand rates, lanes, negotiating power, historical trends, future trends? It's all there. They're paying for it already. They don't even know it exists. They never click on it. They don't use it. That's the first thing you should be using your load board account. There are tools that show your negotiating power, like he was just saying. In this spot today, there are this many trucks and this many loads. That means you either have a lot of negotiating power, you have none, or it's somewhere in the middle. So use it first for the data and to learn this stuff. Then use it to find those brokers you want to build relationships with. That's where they all are. So we don't have to find, now in the beginning, I might want to go out and find, my number is 3 to 5. Find 3 to 5 good brokers. That could take you a while to identify them and build that relationship, but that should be what your goal is to start doing that. If you want to optimize the revenue part of your business, start looking for those 3 to 5 good brokers. Look on the load board. Find somebody in your area in the beginning to get you out with really good freight. Then determine where you'd like to go and then start building loads back. So find a couple of good brokers in areas that you want to go to that will load you back. Or if you want to do triangles or barbells, there's all kinds of techniques we can use. How many of you just love to go someplace different all the time? I like variety, but I had to learn that that's not the way to optimize a trucking company. It really is to focus and stay focused on a product, focus on a lane, focus on a customer. And this is how you do that. And you start building those relationships. So there's 2 uses of the load board so far, and neither one of them, we haven't moved a single load yet. We use it for the data to learn. We use it to find our customers and build relationships. And then finally, maybe 5 to 10% of the time, your 3 to 5 brokers may not have a load that day. And then the load board's right there, and you grab one and you move. Keep the wheels turning. That 5 to 10% is probably going to be your least profitable freight, but it keeps you moving. And it gets you back to where your lanes are.
To recap, those 3 ways to effectively use a public load board to leverage real influence on rates and revenue long term, principally the first 2.
We use it for the data to learn. We use it to find our customers and build relationships. And then finally,
fill in the gaps when your broker customers, yes, customers, those brokers you have a good working relationship with, fill in when they don't have what you need on your lanes. Plenty to think about there. Rutherford's been hard at work reconfiguring the way he thinks about how to deliver tools to owner-operators through education, software, and more in recent years. You can find his tools and all that he delivers via the letstrucktribe.com website and other avenues. Subscriptions to that network start at just about $5 a month, and with the next tier at $25 monthly, Profit Gauge's accounting software you heard him talk about is included too. Find the National Association of Trucking Companies working directly with Rutherford via this relatively new ROTC effort, which includes a new podcast called ROTC Radio via NASTC.com. That's NASTC.com. Big thanks to NASTC for hosting us in our 2025 Small Fleet Champs at the annual conference back in October. And here's looking ahead to the 2026 event, no doubt. Find those links I mentioned in the show notes wherever you're listening. Overdrive Radio is on Spotify and SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts and YouTube, Overdrive's Facebook page, and any listening platform, really. Leave us a review there if you're enjoying these, and here's a big thanks in advance for it. Overdrive Radio is a production of Overdrive, the voice of the American trucker. Edited and produced by me, Todd Dills, with the acoustic guitar and other support of trucker-songwriter Long Haul Paul Marhofer. The theme is Legend of the Snake Man by Marhofer, featuring the guitar work of Travis, the Snake Man himself, Lamech. Terry Two-Socks Richardson on bass, keys by Tishomingo Jim Whitehead, and on drums, Andrew Marshall. The podcast is backed up further by Overdrive's own social media coordinator, Jasmine Campbell, senior editor Matt Cole, executive editor Alex Lockey, and video editors Lawson Rudisell and Andrew Glenn. See you next time.